You know, not this one, sa baba, sa isang place kung saan ako minsan nag-work. Doon ko nilagay yung green screen. Pangit eh. Parang nangyari, pag gumalaw ka, kailangan buong wall gawing green. Sabi ng wife ko, pinturable, lahat ng green yan. Parang useful. Sabi ko, di bali na. Ayaman na.
Medyo tricky din talaga pag ganun. Okay, let's do this.
Sige. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, guys, we're in for a treat today. You've seen him on the previous videos. In my opinion, one of the best economists in the Philippines in this era. Yung mga predictions niya about inflation, GDP, galing. We have Dr. Alvin Ang of the Ateneo back here in the podcast. Dr. Alvin Ang, how are you? How's everything?
Well, I'm good, Marvin. I hope you and all of those who are watching us, okay din kayo, no?
Okay, I'll go straight to it already. September 2020 ngayon. For investors who are following the markets, have we seen is the worst over? Yung negative 16 plus GDP growth, is that the worst that we will ever be in?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Marvin. Actually, most likely we have hit that already. I mean that we have hit the bottom. And we have seen that activities have already picked up, no? Ever since there was some opening in June and then July and up to now. So I think we are already moving up. Of course, still not to the levels that we wanted. But the important thing is we're out of the bottom. Now the question is, will we go back again? So that's a possible question in the minds of people, no? For example, Europe is like experiencing a second wave right now, so they're forced to do lockdowns again. So that's the nature now. That is the nature of doing business and living in this pandemic.
Given that no April 90% of the economy was closed, then suddenly nag-GCQ June, we started to open up again, then August nag-close down ng konti, then we started to open up again. Is it expected that the third quarter, fourth quarter GDP will be better already, then moving forward for 2021 we can expect na it mas hindi siya kasing pangit nung nakita natin nung April?
Yeah, that's right, Marvin. No? Because the opening up actually immediately reflected into the data that we can see, like the leading indicators such as the manufacturing index, trade. No, immediately reflected. No, you see a reversal. So factory started to move again. However, the levels are not as I said, what we wanted, but definitely will still be in negative territory because we're comparing it from previous year, di ba? Hindi naman yung last period, previous year. So magiging negative pa rin yan. But we are improving. No? The negative level is getting smaller. So hopefully, when more of the economy is able to adjust in this situation, most likely we will go to a positive growth by January onwards next year.
Is it expected based on what you're seeing? Do you see it that we will look like we will have like a U-shaped reversal that may possibly happen based on sa nangyayari ngayon?
Oh, in our major briefing we did last about middle of August, my colleagues and we looked at the trend, and it definitely is not a V like the Voltes 5V, no, yung magandang V. No, it's not going to look like that.
Ano yung Voltes 5? Hindi ko na nabulan. Joke lang.
It's going to look like that kind of a V. But it's not also going to look like a U, no? Kasi U ibig sabihin will linger down, no? Linger longer down, bottoming, no? But as I said, we have like move up, but not as we wanted. So our picture of it is like the Nike swoosh.
Ah.
No, parang bababa siya tapos aakyat pero hindi siya mabilis. Hindi siya straight, no? So it's like there's a slight curve going up. So that's how we see the recovery is going to be at the current pace, no? At the current pace of response of firms, at the current pace of government adjustments. Yan ang nakikita natin. Pero it doesn't mean na tuloy-tuloy tayo. I mean, it will all depend on calibration of government and response of firms and consumers.
Got it. Dun sa last GDP disclosure, were there any items there that stood out for you? Anything that looked on the positive side na nagustuhan mo? Then meron din bang on the negative side nakita mo, nako, this might be alarming, this kailangan to bantayan ng bawat sector na concerned?
Well, the most challenging there, of course, is yung hospitality industry in general, no? Which means it includes accommodation, restaurants, retail. It's a big chunk that is affected by this, and which is dependent a lot on physical contact. No? Without the physical contact being allowed, including transport, really, these sectors will have very, very challenging recovery. No, even if the other sectors are recovering, this will be delayed. Maiiwan talaga sila. And unfortunately, with them also, the value chain of these sectors connects to real estate, connects to certain construction. No? Kaya yung mga private construction, you will see a slowdown of it as well. But we are very hopeful that the government construction will continue. No? You have to push on that. And of course, the darling of it all, as we have been mentioning, that we want agriculture to really be given much priority, and we are seeing that happening now. No, agriculture is really going up. Kaya lang, there's a lot of disconnect kasi sa sector na to. This is the challenging part, but it's getting the attention that it has. It's supposed to be getting years ago. So yun lang, no? Wala tayong mga very limited companies engaged in agriculture, particularly those listed. But this is where you have lots of potential opportunities. Of course, logistics is also very important. Right now, for example, a lot of car sales siguro down in general. But if you look at the details of that, I will not be surprised if, let's say, mga delivery trucks sumataas ang sale, mga pick up. No? We're going to
motor,
bicycles, kasi logistics and mobility remains as important. Okay, so ito yung mga nag-change yung nila yung opportunities. And of course, same with telecoms. There's a lot of but most of the telecom requirements are infra, hindi naman yung actual physical needs ng mga tao. But you can see that in terms of there's a big increase in other miscellaneous expenses of people, which is like what we were talking about early on before on cam. People are adjusting in the work from home arrangement, school from home arrangement. So gadgets yan, pagandahin yung stable internet connection and the like. So I think that's where people are going right now.
Got it. Now, I have some questions about some data points, and baka you can chime in your expertise on this. Unang-una, gross internal reserves are very, very high right now. One ideology towards that is because yung imports, wala rin talagang nagpapapalit ng dollar ngayon kaya mataas siya. Pero looking at it at a very, very high point, is it something good for us, which dapat traditionally very, very good for us, or given na medyo nag-slow down also yung trade, is that a byproduct of that also?
Yes, the main naman ng purpose naman ng reserves mo is really to ensure that you're able to fulfill your international commitments. So that includes your short-term international debts, whether government or corporate. Then, of course, a large part of it is really imports.
Mm.
And as you know, we are an import-dependent country. People up to today, I'm actually surprised. People up to today are in denial that we are an import-dependent country.
Mm.
That they say that this is good for us, this crisis is good for us. We can buy Filipino, but what can you buy that is really Filipino?
Mm.
Look at the consumption of ordinary Filipinos, yung basket niya. How many percent is really bought locally? Yeah, you can
Mm.
buy it here, but who
Mm.
produced it? 'Di ba? Yun yung reality eh. That there's really a need for us to to produce locally, but because we don't produce locally many of the things we use, no, like in our conversation right now, 'di ba? Lahat ng mga ginagamit siguro natin, mga 90% hindi naman gawa sa Philippines or nag-contribute lang yung Philippines sa production.
Mm.
So if you sum it all up, your imports are really very high. Now, why is it not going up? Because the value chains are disrupted. The value chains are disrupted in what context? Disrupt siya sa electronics. Na-disrupt siya sa equipment. So, what are we importing now are just basic essentials, pagkain, partly yung mga PPE, medical supplies. In terms of value, they're not that high compared to the trade value of the main products that we are importing. If you look at the contents of imports, the top 5 imports as a share of total imports, usually prior to this crisis, from the 2010, even further up to 2019, lahat yan, ang lalaki. Ang component niya siguro about 60%. The top 5 imports to total imports about 60%. You know, during this crisis, kung ilang percent lang yung top 5 imports na yan,
Mm.
wala pang 5%.
Okay, wow.
So, ibig sabihin, we're not importing the usual imports. What that includes? Oil,
Mm.
definitely. Sino bang gumagamit ng oil ngayon? Diba? Meron, but not as, I
Not
mean,
so much eh.
before every week, at least you have to fill up your tank. Now, ang tagal, 1 month siguro. So, laking slowdown dyan. And then you also have a lot of slowdown in the components. You use your import components you need for your manufacturing and the likes. So, basically, yun yung nagpababa nung import. Kaya, ang liit ng trade deficit natin. It's a big decline. And so, naipon yung dollar use mo, tapos the government also borrowed about ilang billion na yun na borrow. Not on top of head siguro mga $8 billion very quickly lang na naborrow, nadagdag mo. So add it all up, plus very small payments, and even if the remittances have declined, may remittances pa rin. Di ba? Yung BPOs nagko-contribute pa din, not 100% as before, but they still yun ang nangyari. Now we have excess that piled up our reserves.
Is this something na to look at na people are saying, oh, mataas, we're better off than where we were before, or it's just really a byproduct of all of this?
Yeah, you're correct. It's a byproduct of all of this, and it's not necessarily good like in the manner that I'm explaining, because it's saying that the economy is not moving very much because we
Got it.
are in import-dependent economy. Unless we can produce yung mga kailangan natin. You know, yun nga, for example, yung PPE, we feel bad that we cannot produce our own at hindi in-order dito. Kasi wala talaga ma-order kasi wala tayong raw materials eh. We don't have enough textile to be used. I-import mo pa rin. 'Di ba? So, yun yung mga challenge natin. And actually, we have it's good in the context of sa lahat ng macro indicators natin. Yan ang pinakamaganda na lang na iwan eh. Yung international reserves. That means nobody can attack our currency. Nobody can speculate on our currency, and that could hold, no? And which is very important. Also, ano yan, in a way, parang sovereign protection mo na lang mo yan, no? Just in case we really need to pay our debts, we really have money. And I'm not worried if, say, maraming utang natin, but we have 100 billion reserves. If ang payables natin demandable any given time siguro wala pang 10 or 20 billion dollars. So we're 5 times better, and we have the best actually, not the best total reserves, but as a percent of GDP, I think we have one of the highest in the region, Asia, not ASEAN, but Asia.
Wow. Galing. Two questions from what you mentioned. You mentioned also that the peso is relatively stronger against the dollar. Madami nagtatanong nito. At 48, should they buy dollar right now with the intention na pag bumalik yan sa above 50, ibenta rin nila later on? Is this at the is this one of the lowest that we've seen for the dollar or the strongest that we've seen for the peso? And yun, what's your opinion on that also, on why the peso is strengthening?
Related yon, because yun nga, the imports have started to weaken, and so there's not much demand for dollars. If you look at the data, you will see that very clearly. When the trade deficit, yung malaking import natin, sobrang laki, the peso dollar rate talagang mag-weaken, no? Nag-depreciate siya. The last major adjustment we had, about close to 54, was also the peak of the deficit. That's the worst deficit. But once the deficit starts to soften, the peso starts to adjust. And that's why in all of my my briefing, I always tell that look at the fundamental value of the peso. It is following the trade deficit. That's the fundamental value. But of course, the day-to-day value of the peso is dependent on a lot of things. Yeah, so the stock market plays a role there, no? Especially pag maraming foreigners na bumili, papasok, gagalaw yung piso doon. But the fundamental value is determined basically by the trade deficit. And as you can see right now, the trade deficit is not that high. Kaya yung peso talaga, appreciate siya. Nakikita ng mga traders, there's not much demand basically for US dollars. So, is it going to go back to the 50s level? Our view is that it will.
Okay.
It will. And why will it? Because if the economy recovers, it will import. Definitely we need, as I said, we are an import-dependent economy. We have to import. Ano yung mga import mo? Yung mga equipment, yung mga components, yung mga raw materials. Unless we are able to do magic and produce them in 6 months na meron tayong capacity to produce all of this now. Wala eh. Di ba? Sa food, siguro we can. We can compensate food. But manufactured components, wala tayong raw materials, wala tayo ng mga elements na yan. And this is all this, as I said, no, naggumagalaw na in China. China now is moving, and if the trade in China starts to move very fast, it will pull the value chain, no? Pag hinila niya yung value chain, ASEAN, pag hinila yung ASEAN, hila Philippines. So, then yung mga factories mo ngayon will now need raw material. So, import na yan. Yan na. Di ba? So, yung mga vehicles, ngayon, walang masyadong demand, walang masyadong production. But, then, remember, China, still, may pera pa rin sila, no? So, yung mangyayari niyan, if they're not producing it, they will, since the cost of production in China has gone higher and has gone to Vietnam, di ba? Lumipat yung iba sa Vietnam. Mahihila pa din tayo dyan kahit hindi sila lumipat sa Philippines. So, there's still the potential of the peso going back to the 50 level is very likely next year. That's our forecast. Average siguro mga 50 next year. 50-50. 50-50.
Got it. Next question. You mentioned that the Philippines has been borrowing, pero there's a lot of analysis that in proportion to the size of the economy, kahit madami tayong inutang, it's still not at that alarming point. Are we still there right now?
Yeah, it's still there. We added about 8 billion, as I said, dollars in debts. That would have ballooned our total debt to GDP from about 38% to about 50% of GDP. So, but of course, that GDP is 2019, ano? So, hindi natin alam ngayon 2020 kasi liliit tayo, di ba? We'll be smaller. So, if we're smaller, then mas malaki yun. O sabihin na natin 60% of GDP. But historically, we were at about 80. No? And other countries, that's only international debt. But if we count tayo kasama na pala yung lahat ng debts yun. No? If international debts lang, foreign debts lang, siguro mga nasa sa 35 lang tayo. But overall debt, siguro mga 50 to 60% of GDP. But richer countries have more.
More.
No? Japan has about 230, 250% debt. Puro utang, no? US and many of the developed countries, they have very high debt to GDP ratio compared to us. Even sa neighborhood, we have one of the smallest debt to GDP ratio.
Is there a percentage na pag tumawid tayo dito, doon mo nasasabihin na parang, medyo alanganin na tayo dito? Meron bang threshold that you will try to set or look at?
Well, ako wala namang ganyan sa international circles. They're all looking at the classification of debts, whether short term or long term. So I think, no, in fairness to these mga economic managers, they're not borrowing to be paid next year. No? They're borrowing internationally, ADB, World Bank, 30 years yan. May grace period pa yan ng mga 3 years or 5 years sa umpisa. So, it really gives you a lot of time to prepare to pay. Of course, debt yan, you have to pay eventually. But siguro, ang nakita ko malaking pressure for the government now is the domestic debts kasi karamihan doon are short term, no? Para mabilis. I think yung mga 5-year bonds kinonvert nila into 2-year bonds para mabilis yung liquidity kasi gusto mo kaagad makuha, no? And they're all oversubscribed, no? That means very liquid. We have a very liquid market. People siguro magchismis ka lang, Marvin, ng isang stock, maakyat yun eh. Liquid na liquid eh. Diba? It's very liquid right now. Anywhere. The bond market, look at the bonds. How many companies and banks have, I have parang minap ko, up to August, middle of August, we already have 90% of number of bonds, value of bonds that were raised compared to last year. So, meron pa tayong a few months, may magre-raise pa ng bonds dyan. Kasi ang baba ng interest. Kung ako rin ang borrower, I will go to the bond market right now. Interest rate is all-time low. Konti-konti lang babayaran mo.
Ang dami nagre-retire ng mga lumang bonds. At ang dami mga preferred share na matataas rin. Kinukuha nila ulit eh. Lugi.
Yeah. Pagbuti pa, i-bonds na lang nila. Di ba? Convert mo lahat sa mga bonds.
In line with that, the interest rate right now is at 2.25%. Do you see that going lower based on what the BSP's plans are, or you think parang we will be stable at this level also?
Tingin ko, na yan, low na yan. Hindi na nila bababa. Kasi very liquid na eh. So, what else do you want to do? If you lower it further, magdadagdag ka sa liquidity pero hindi na ma-absorb eh. Everything that government release, oversubscribe eh. So, the idea is actually for the firms to be able to borrow but the banks are not lending. The way you wanted them to be, which hindi mo naman sila pwedeng sabihin, ipipilit, no? So, we can see the data. The lending rate has been going down. So, yeah, and tapos nag-moratorium ka ngayon. The BSP just approved, right? 2 months moratorium again. Pero sa single loan lang, per loan yun, per loan. 2 months moratorium per loan. So, yun. It's really, you're really looking at how to bring back confidence. Confidence lang naman kailangan natin eh. Just like I said, if people are confident now to go out, to do business, malaking bagay yun, no? If we are able to handle the threats of the virus, okay, I think we will at that point, kung ganun na, the market is very ripe for some rebound, no? Kaya lang, yun nga, challenge is not everybody's convinced at this time. Yun.
At looking naman about our inflation, it's I think a very stable at this point. Would that be a concern later on, or because there's a lot of liquidity, would that help pump up yung inflation rate natin, or you think it will just be steady based on slower economic activity also?
Yeah, inflation kasi the challenge is people may have money but they're not buying other things. So only The only concentration in inflation is really food,
Mm.
utilities, no? If you monitor the movement of inflation, yun lang and yun lang affected, and surprisingly, food prices have been going down. I mean, affordable siya eh. Kaya okay siya, no? Kaya kung may supply tayo, we will supply and affordable, uh, the basket is sustainable. There is actually a study in the US that came out just a few months ago, no? Siguro just in the middle of this pandemic, so mga 3 months ago. Sabi nila dapat palitan yung inflation basket kasi nag-iba yung consumption pattern ng tao. Kaya baka mali daw yung inflation, which
Makes
I
sense.
agree, no? I agree, baka nagmali nga kasi measure mo siya on normal
Mm.
normal basket, but the
Mm.
inflation rate might be higher now kung iniba mo yung pattern, no? Baka. So I don't know. It's not, to me, it's not easy to say that, but logically it looks correct, 'di ba? Kasi for example, sa US din, ang baba din ng inflation. Kasi nga anywhere which is we don't want very low inflation. Remember, the Great Depression was worsened
Mm.
by low inflation. Kasi that ang implications na people are not spending. But actually, we think people are spending because we see people spending, right? But not on the things that we want them all to spend. So they're pushed to food, they're pushed to uh, online market or online shopping. Tsaka karamihan yun nga, yung needs lang nila, 'di ba? Yung how to make their life comfortable at home.
Mm.
Puro yun, and how to protect themselves. So puro yun. But there's consumption. There's consumption there, no? At very very rigid, no? Yung BSP nga, uh, they have just released a series of data that showed that wala nag-withdraw sa ATM, wala nag-issue ng check, down by more than 40% both, but ang increase sa
Digital.
online digital payments by
Mm.
70%. Doon pumunta, no? But then 16% lang ng family sa Philippines may access sa internet. So, ibig sabihin, malaki pa yung potential.
Got it.
Malaki yung potential. That's why, Marvin, baka yan ang dahilan. Kaya yung pinag-uusapan natin kanina, they are being allowed. No? Because there's a lot of opportunities that can still be opened eh.
Speaking of that, no, yun yung, I have three final questions na lang. Speaking of that, what's your take in this whole, telco saga that we're seeing? Do you think that the incumbents will still dominate, or the new players will take a big piece also of the pie as well?
Ano yan, ano? Well, it's a question of how you play the war. I mean, the telco wars that is coming. No? Right now, PLDT and Globe really are at each other. No? Pati si Converge ngayon na ma-marginalize kasi wala naman siyang telephone line eh. Plus, dependent din siya dun sa dalawa na yon in a way. So, and since everybody wants a piece of the cake, the new players, no, dito, or if you give, as I said, no, there have been many licenses that they're out there. They can be renewed because theoretically it was given to them. If they resuscitate them, that could enliven the market. Kaya lang, the challenge is people demand affordability and sustainable service eh.
Mm.
So yun ang gusto nating makita, no? So will Dito provide an alternative like that, affordable and sustainable service, right? Kasi I don't think they will build all of their own towers na lahat sa
Cell
kanila.
sites. Mm.
Oh, that they cannot do it naman. Kung gano'n ang gagawin nila, magiging parang saan sila nung umpisa, konti lang yung reach, di ba? So they have to interconnect as well. And then the cable linkages as well, no? Hindi maiwasan. So it will of course create a lot of uh, sa mga tao yung excitement.
Mm.
I'm looking forward actually to the time when Dito will say we're open, and you see a lot of people will test the market, meaning they will still have PLDT or Globe, but they will get a third. They will get
Mm.
a another. No, so may kasi in a situation like this we need redundancy. Yung okay lang dalawa binabayaran ko basta sure ako. Kasi remember that is how we are in the telephone. 'Di ba? Yung iba nga tatlong line dati meron. So redundancy. So ganyan din mangyayari diyan sa telco. So it's a win all. Marvin, the telco is a win all. I
Got it.
I I see it to go that way. Kahit
Got
saan
it.
sila pumunta, people will want to have both. Both the best of both worlds.
Okay. Salamat sa input doon. Last two questions. Based on the analysis a while ago that we've seen the worst, if you are an investor right now or a regular employee, self-employed business person, tapos yung income mo hindi naman natamaan, meron ka pa ring savings, meron ka talagang disposable income, would you tell them that right now, wala na tayo sa pinakamababa, pero there's an expectation that things will get better, is it okay already to invest kung long-term naman yung horizon mo?
Well, like I said, no, when I was talking to the economist of an international mutual fund, where do you go? There is no other way to go if you have money and you have a future that you want to protect, but to invest. But be careful. No? You look at the products you are or considering, the sector, di ba? So alam mo naman, we already know the sectors that will have difficult time recovering. They will recover, but they will take longer than the rest. So why not take advantage of the essentials first? Yeah. And magre-recover din naman yan eh. So kailangan kasi may return yung money mo at least at this time. It pays to be liquid, but at the same time, how much liquidity do you really need when you cannot spend on so many things? No, puro pagkain na, puro food lang nabibili mo, puro gadget tuloy na puro consumption. Why not think of putting it in something that can be productive? No? So an investment instrument is always good, whether it's a treasury bond, whether it's a balanced mutual fund, or whether it's directly in the stock market or any other derivative products that you understand very well, and that you know the potential limits of the returns, and the risk of failure. Yun lang mahalaga. I mean, it always pays, lalo na kung meron ka namang pera pa, you know.
Got
Dapat
it.
nga eh, dapat nga. I think a lot of people, I have seen data that a recent survey that showed about 10% of the working population, or in the working people in the Philippines, actually were not affected so much by the crisis. That 10%, um, about half of them have access to have are work from home. So mostly, I think, ito yung ano pa, no? Solid. Ito ngayon yung nakakapag-save ng malaki because they're not spending. So,
Oh,
naiipon yung pera nito. So, I strongly recommend that you try to study the investment products available to you that fits you, and you understand that you have to. You
got
owe it
it.
to your next generation.
Got it. Ngayon, last portion. Magbibigay ako ng sector. Sabihin mo lang kung ano siya, leading or lagging. Parang ganon. Or
Okay. Yeah.
thriving or surviving. Okay, let's start. Banking.
Ano yan? Leading yan. Leading.
Okay.
Finance is leading.
Property.
Lagging.
Okay. Mining.
Mining, ano ba tamang term? Mining is can thrive because but we cannot see the movement yet. But in theory, I don't see any reason why it should not thrive at this time.
Construction.
Construction, split half private is lagging, but government side is really ano yan, up the roof, no? If they just put all the money there, this will move.
Consumption that are considered necessities.
Yan. Siyempre, leading. Leading
Okay.
times 10.
Okay. Utilities.
Utilities leading also, pero mostly you have to classify, no, residential, industrial, commercial. Residential utilities booming yan, top of the but the main utility pooler you mean the one that brings you a lot of income is really industrial and commercial consumption, there's a lag.
Mm. Okay. Traditional media.
Traditional media, meaning TV, radio,
Mm-mm.
or newspaper,
Mm-mm.
uh, even cable, no? tingin ko tingin ko lagging na sila.
Okay.
Oh, this one.
Uh, ano term dito? Okay, I'll lump it all together. Brick and mortar consumption from retail food outlets to restaurants to clothes, mga nagbebenta ng clothes,
Uh,
etc.
very much lagging. Very much lagging.
Tourism.
Lagging din. May ano ako doon, but the tourism, may kolatilya ako doon. If they are, see, in the data set natin sa Philippines, nakikita natin international tourism. But actually, the biggest tourism market in the Philippines are
Local.
Filipinos. Talagang malaki.
Mm.
So if we are able to, like what they plan to do in Region 1, 2, and Baguio, yung bubble tourism, okay. No? It can actually trigger economic activities.
Okay.
Diba? Buksan mo lang yung Tagaytay ngayon, di ba? Everybody will go to Tagaytay.
Telecoms.
Telecoms, yun nga, super leading.
Toll roads.
Toll roads, yeah, with leading na yan because of economic activity, okay na siya.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much, Dr. Alvin. By the way, you have a YouTube channel. How can people get in touch with you? How can they watch your videos? Guys, sobrang galing. Kung mag-subscribe kayo sa isang channel ngayong September, sa kanya na lang. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you, Marvin. Actually, my YouTube channel is called Your Everyday Economist, Alvin Ang. So you can watch. Actually, part of it are a lot of it are actually my lectures. Made into very small bits and pieces. So it can help you understand the macroeconomy's foundations. No? Foundations. So you will know the expectations. No? But of course, if you need actual day-to-day information, you have to go to Marvin. You cannot find it in my channel. So foundational lang yung akin.
Yeah. Kung gusto niyo matuwa sa akin, kung gusto niyo maging matalino, everyday economist, I'll put the link in the description below so that you can go directly to it. And please subscribe and like Dr. Alvin Ang's channel. Lastly na lang, alam ko sabi ko lastly, any words of encouragement for people naman? We are in the 6th month already to close this. Anything that you want to say to everyone watching?
Yeah, that's no. If you think about it, about 7 months, 7 months ago, we were not thinking na we will be like, it will take this long. But actually, it's now becoming very clear to us that it's not going to be very easy to just shrug off this virus. So most likely, whether it takes us another 6 months or a year more, the important thing is not anymore to wait when it will be better. You have to start to do something today. Don't wait, because if you wait, no, sabi nga sa Bible, if you wait and never plant, then you will not get anything. So this is maybe the time to start understanding, analyzing, and learning your current situation. If you're in business, how can you retrofit? If you are working, do I need to upgrade my skills? Baka I'm being targeted for a fourth industrial revolution kind of change, di ba? And then in investments, baka we are still waiting for the traditional industries to return. They might not return as soon as we want. So it's better to be studying a lot right now. A lot of information are free in the internet. You can learn. No? Uh, you can read books right now. Learn. This is a good time to learn as much as you can, and then implement. Don't wait na to wait another. Baka things will get better. May vaccine na. Remember, even if there's a vaccine now available, there will be a long line, long queue. About 8 billion people need to be vaccinated. So where are we in the queue? Diba? So you have to think about it. So it's important that we don't wait for things to get better. we start to do it now and take advantage, no? Sabi nga na carpe diem, seize the day.
Tsaka, don't wait for things to get better. Don't also get bitter or don't get butter. Yung nalulusaw ka sa nangyayari, di ba? So, thank you so much, Dr. Alvin Ang, for your insights. And to everyone, no, if there's one thing that you got from this, kunin nyo lahat ng data and then implement it to whatever you're doing. Kung negosyo man yan or investments yan na meron kayo. Kasi sayang kung pinanood nyo to, tapos natuwa kayo, natuto kayo, pero you don't do anything about it, sayang. And if there's one thing that I got from Dr. Alvin Ang's message and talk is even if the economy is either good or bad, you can always strive also. You don't have to wait for what's happening in the macro for your personal economy also to get better. So, there. And if there's one thing pala, nakalimutan ko sabihin before, if there's one thing na naging silver lining nito, hindi nga tayo nakaka-video nung walang crisis, bihira tayo magkita ngayon, naka-4 na yata tayo, 5 sa taon na to. Yun yung, meron din siyang nagagawa na oo nga, no, kahit hindi tayo nagkita, may Zoom naman. Things can still be done. Yeah. So, yun lang. Thank you so much to everyone. Guys, kung hindi nyo pa napanood si Dr. Alvin Ang, lalagay ko rin yung mga iba naming videos dito. Pero kung gusto nyo talagang solid content, puntahan nyo yung channel niya. I-like nyo, sabihin nyo na fan kayo. Okay, so thank you everyone. I hope this video helps you. Trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon. Bye, guys.
God bless. Bye-bye.
We're done. Anong next meeting mo?